So Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns will now be headlining the UFC Fight Night card on May 30th. It was originally supposed to be headlining the card on May 23rd, but that got postponed. I am all in favour of postponing the event for a week if it means that we can have some more fun matchups on the card and make it a better card overall. Trust me, 2 weeks is not going to affect me. Before a week ago, I had been waiting for what felt like a year for fights to come back on. Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns is an amazing matchup. Okay, I love the matchup. I don't understand why the matchup has been made, but regardless, the matchup is very good. Gilbert Burns, after a big win against Damian Maia, catapulted himself into the top 10 of the welterweight division, is now a threat to guys in the top of the division. There's no doubt in that after his performance against Damian Maia. He kind of showed people that, oh shit, this guy could actually make a run for a title here. Gilbert Burns is no fucking joke. Tyron Woodley, on the other hand, a completely different situation. He's no longer chasing the belt. He's already had the belt for a very long time. He's coming back to make a statement and prove everyone that he's still got it at his old age of what feels like 37 or 36 right now. He's no young spring chicken anymore, I'll be honest with you guys, but Tyron Woodley is making a comeback after his humiliating loss to Kamaru Usman. I just feel as though Tyron Woodley's going to win. I think Tyron Woodley's going to go out there and dust up Gilbert Burns in the second round. However, I feel as though Gilbert Burns is going to be beating kind of the shit out of him. Maybe. I don't think he's going to be concussing him, but I think that Gilbert Burns is going to be winning the fight until that one punch is going to end it all. I've seen Gilbert Burns KO'd by Dan Hooker, and you could say to me, wait, that was at 155 pounds. The weight cut is going to make him have a way better chin at 170 pounds. That rarely is the case. Guys that move up weight classes can still be KO'd. I know it has some effect on their chin and their ability to take a punch when they don't completely drain their brain of liquid a day before the fight. However, Gilbert Burns is still going to be cutting weight here. And I think that Tyron Woodley, when you do make that jump up in weight class, especially from 55 to 170, that's a very big power difference. No one at 155 hits like Tyron Woodley. Maybe the closest thing to it would be Conor McGregor or Justin Gaethje, and even then, those two don't win an argument in terms of power against Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley is easily the hardest hitting guy through 170, 155, every division below. Tyron Woodley's the guy. He's got a massive power advantage here over Gilbert Burns, and I think that Gilbert Burns, in his recent fights, has looked really good. Against Damian Maia, he had the first round TKO. Was it the best Damian Maia we've ever seen or heard of? I don't believe so. I know Damian Maia was coming off a big win against Ben Askren, but after the Ben Askren performance, he then called out Diego Sanchez and he got Gilbert Burns. That tells me he had a real different idea on what he wanted to do with his career, and he wasn't maybe too happy with taking the fight with Gilbert Burns, but that was just the one that was offered to him. If you're calling out Diego Sanchez, ever, and you're in the rankings and you're calling out Diego Sanchez, one, you want an easy payday, or two, and one, combined, it's the whole reason you're not looking for the belt anymore. I don't think that Gilbert Burns fought the same Damian Maia that the rest of these guys fought when Damian Maia was finally getting his chance, a shot at the belt against Tyron Woodley at 170 pounds. He spent a lot of his career at higher weight classes. He's finally got his chance to get his title shot at 170. Okay, and that's when he fought Tyron Woodley. Okay, and then after that, he was looking to get back on the horse. He fought Colby Covington. Then Kamaru Usman. And I thought there was a switch in gears in Damian Maia's mindset. I don't think he's looking for the belt anymore. I know he's not looking for the belt anymore because he said he's not looking for the belt anymore. He wanted to fight Diego Sanchez. That's a different Damian Maia. And although Gilbert Burns caught him with a good punch, and you could say that Gilbert Burns has KO power, at 170, does he? Gunnar Nelson is a guy who's been TKO'd before at 170 and rocked and dropped quite often in his fights at 170 as well. Even in the Alex Oliveira fight, he got dropped really badly hurt. He's had a lot of fights where he's been really badly hurt and dropped. Leon Edwards dropped him as well, and Leon Edwards is a guy who doesn't have the most power in the division. Gilbert Burns couldn't. He had a very competitive fight with Gunnar Nelson, and I know we could judge Gilbert Burns off of his most impressive performance, but I think I'm going to judge him based on his 170 resume overall. This is a short notice fight versus Tyron Woodley, and before you tell me that he's had a training camp. That training camp was for a fight in March. We're now in May. I know it feels like during this whole pandemic, time is flying by and you don't even realize it. But that's a long time to not be after training camp. That's a long time after training camp to re-sign and fight again. I know that this extra week has given him a bit more of an extension time, but I will say this. After a training camp, what do fighters do? What do all fighters say they do after a training camp is over and they have won a fight in spectacular fashion? They go and eat. They stop training. They recover. They have a little bit of a time off. Then Gilbert Burns gets the call about Tyron Woodley. All of a sudden, he's got to get back to training camp. And it's a different training camp now. You know, it's under pandemic rules. You're not going to have the same training camp. So on short notice, to be taking a fight during a pandemic, I just don't think it's very wise for Gilbert Burns to do this, especially being a main event where it's 5 rounds. I've seen Woodley go 5 rounds. I know Woodley can go 5 rounds, albeit at his own pace, and that's a very slow pace. I'll be honest with you, a very boring pace when Tyron Woodley gets his own way. But I don't think Gilbert Burns is going to be able to go 5 rounds with Woodley without getting hit by one punch. And I don't see Gilbert Burns KOing Tyron Woodley. It could definitely happen. Don't get me wrong, but he couldn't KO Gunnar Nelson on short notice. Couldn't KO Alexei Kunchenko on short notice. Had very, very competitive fights with them. Look at the recent resumes. You've got Gilbert Burns taking on guys like Gunnar Nelson, Alexei Kunchenko, Mike Davis, although he's a good fighter. Maybe before his prime, still learning, still evolving in the game, a young talent, but Gilbert Burns has been around, showed him a few things. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, you know, now cut from the UFC. Damian Maia was a big win, but was it the same Damian Maia? And then you look at Woodley's resume. Kelvin Gastelum, Robbie Lawler, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, Darren Till, Kamaru Usman. Even a loss to Kamaru Usman is a fight with Kamaru Usman. And he lasted 5 rounds, even though Usman's not much of a finisher. But either way, it was a humiliating performance from Kamaru Usman, and for him to do that to Tyron Woodley shows how good Usman is. I just don't think that Gilbert Burns possesses the same tools that Kamaru Usman does. I know he's not as big as Usman. Usman's the biggest guy in the fucking division, okay? That's just how it is. Maybe Michael Chiesa's actually bigger than Usman. Michael Chiesa is fucking huge. But either way, Usman might be the biggest guy in the division. One of the biggest guys in the division. He's one of the strongest guys in the division. He's probably the best wrestler in the division. If you don't look at credentials, you could argue Colby Covington. We never got to see those two square off. He's one of the 2 best wrestlers in the entire division. I don't think you can say those same things about Gilbert Burns at 170. I think Tyron Woodley's going to catch him. You're giving him 5 rounds to catch Gilbert Burns. I think he's going to be very patient. He's not going to throw too much. He's going to wait for his moment, and he's going to land on Gilbert Burns, getting a little bit overconfident, trying to land his big combos against Tyron Woodley. Gilbert Burns is going to be winning this fight until he loses. That's what I will say. I'm just betting that if Tyron Woodley can find the shot on Darren Till in a very, very patient fight, which Darren Till loves in these big spotlights, when Darren Till fights a guy who he's a favourite against, he goes out there to annihilate them. When he fights a guy where he's an underdog, he just stares at them, tries to figure him out, plays his own game, and Tyron Woodley beat him at that game. That's a fair... You've got to be fair here. Tyron Woodley's beaten some great guys in this weight class, including Damian Maia, who, by the way, immediately got Gilbert Burns to the ground, and it was a different Damian Maia as well. Whereas the Damian Maia against Tyron Woodley, a committed Damian Maia looking for the belt, couldn't take down Woodley over 5 rounds when Woodley had one arm. Tyron Woodley's going to be able to stuff the takedowns of Gilbert Burns. That's something you can take away from Burns in this fight. I don't think he's going to be able to smush Woodley. If it does go to the ground, Burns has an advantage, but I don't think Tyron Woodley's going to let it get there. Tyron Woodley's going to back up against the cage. There's going to be there's no shocker here. Tyron Woodley's going to go in there, immediately back himself up to the cage and say, okay, come on. I've got to land one shot. You've got to land multiple for 5 rounds without me landing one of them. Tyron Woodley's got the cheat code. What he doesn't have in being able to just outstrike guys, he'll knock you down, win a round off of it, and just sit there and wait. He doesn't need to rush things. I think Gilbert Burns is going to go out there, try and put it on Woodley early, feel like he's winning, because he does do that. Gilbert Burns does unload against the cage against guys, and he's very dangerous doing that and has some KO power. However, I have never seen Woodley show signs of a bad chin. I mean, I know he got KO'd earlier in his career, but I'm sure people can agree he's taken big shots off of everyone in the division recently, and he's taken them okay against guys that I feel like are a little bit harder hitting than Gilbert Burns. I know Gilbert Burns has power, but at 170, I mean, if you can't KO Gunnar Nelson, I don't see a KO in Tyron Woodley. Gilbert Burns has to be perfect for 5 rounds on short notice. Tyron Woodley needs 1 shot to win a round, or 1 shot to end the entire fight. I'm going to bet on Tyron Woodley, not to mention Tyron Woodley has been finding this 1 shot to win him rounds or the fight as a whole, against guys who are way taller than him and way rangier than him. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, although Tyron Woodley has the same reach as these guys, and if not a longer reach than some of these taller guys, landing on a taller guy is very difficult. You put a guy on Tyron Woodley's level, I think he's going to utilize his reach even more. I think he's going to find it easier to land the big shots. I think Gilbert Burns is going to get overconfident going for Tyron Woodley in the first round, and around the second round, after Gilbert Burns has had a successful first one, Woodley's going to land a big shot and put Gilbert down, and then whatever happens there, whether he wins that round and moves on and Gilbert never fully recovers and doesn't want to commit to his big combos against the cage anymore, that could happen. Or if Tyron Woodley just lands the big shot, Gilbert Burns goes down and doesn't get back up, because that can happen with Tyron Woodley. I just feel as though Woodley's going to win. Not to mention, another thing, Tyron Woodley's had a full training camp that he never fought for. He had a full training camp against Leon Edwards outside of this whole pandemic. He's had a real training camp here, okay? And he's never got to release that rage and that peak physical performance. When you get to that peak during your training camps towards the end, you want to release that. Tyron Woodley's kept hold of that. He's going to carry that over to this fight. Gilbert Burns has had a fight. He was very successful. What do all fighters do? They chill out after a fight. They enjoy themselves. And then an opportunity against Woodley comes up and you're like, oh shit, I'll put the burgers down. I've got to get into shape again. I just don't like it for Gilbert Burns. And not to mention, what's the one thing guys that move up in weight class don't have to focus as much anymore? Their diet. Their nutrition. You know? I just don't think that Gilbert Burns is going to be able to do 5 rounds with Tyron Woodley, and I don't see him finishing him. I think you've got to do 5 rounds with Woodley at this point. He's too careful. He takes no chances. He's going to make Gilbert Burns second guess himself, and in the second round, he's going to land a big bomb, put him down. You could say that Gilbert Burns has been more active. Against who, though? Close fight with Gunnar Nelson. Close fight with Alexei Kunchenko. Like, if you told me that a guy... I know he KO'd Damian Maia, but take that fight away for a second. If you tell me that a guy went to a close decision with Gunnar Nelson on short notice, and a close decision with Alexei Kunchenko on short notice, who just lost to Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos in a very close controversial decision fight, now you're telling me that guy, that same guy on short notice, is going to go out there and beat Tyron Woodley. I just don't see it happening. As much as I hate Woodley and want to see him get KO'd, trust me, I'm rooting for Gilbert Burns here, because Tyron Woodley taking this fight has royally pissed me off. He could have waited a few weeks and fought Colby Covington, but he didn't want that to happen because he wanted Colby on short notice, I guess, which is kind of a bitch move. I know it sounds cool to say I'll take on anyone, but you're at an advantage. You've had a full camp. The guys that you're calling out haven't. I don't think that's very cool. Like, it's very cool of him wanting to continue with an event against a different opponent, but like, to call someone a bitch for not wanting to take that fight, I mean, you're giving him a week. You've had months to prepare. That's a little bit unfair. You know, of course, not a lot of guys are going to be chomping at the bit to take that fight, but Gilbert Burns is. I respect him for it. I think he's going to get a rude awakening of power at 170 that he hasn't faced yet, and I think Woodley's going to spark him out in the second round. I'll say second round TKO. Gilbert Burns wins the first round. Woodley puts him down in the second. I just think Woodley's going to get it done, man. I know he's been inactive, but he's had a full training camp. He's going in there. He's had longer than a full training camp. He's had about 5 months for this fight now. I just think that he's going to win. He's had more 5-round experience. He knows what he's doing in there. The inactivity could be a huge problem, and trust me, Gilbert Burns could land, and I want him to so badly, to ruin Woodley out of the division, because right now, he's just playing a bit of a fucking game, in my opinion, but I think that Tyron Woodley's going to win. Why would you fucking sign a fight with Gilbert Burns, though? That's the real question for me. Why would you do this? You fucked up the whole division, and if you lose, you're going to fuck it up even further. But whatever. If he wins, he says he wants a title shot again. It's so impossible to sell a fight between you and Kamaru Usman in a rematch. Fair enough if Masvidal beats Usman, and they're not planning on giving a shot to Colby Covington, and they maybe make an Usman-Covington rematch when they don't have the belt on the line. And then you can maybe get a title shot. But if you think for a second, and I think Usman beats Masvidal, if you think for a second that you're going to get a rematch against Usman here for beating Gilbert Burns, I think Woodley's in for a rude awakening, even if he does wins. Burns is in for a rude awakening in the fight. Woodley's in for a rude awakening in the negotiating room outside of the fight when he's done with Gilbert Burns. He ain't going to get a title shot. I don't know why he did this. No one wants to see him and Usman too. We get it, your soul left your body. Same thing happened when you fought Jake Shields and Rory McDonald, right? And Nate Marquardt. Cool. Like, it's just, you lost, though. And it was really embarrassing. And it's hard to sell a rematch. And you shouldn't have taken on Gilbert Burns. If Woodley fought Colby in a few weeks, and they got that fight together in a big event on a pay-per-view, rather than a fucking fight night in the middle of May, maybe he could have got a title shot back. No, wait. Definitely he could have got a title shot back if he beat Colby Covington. But he's taking on Gilbert Burns. I don't fucking know why. But maybe Tyron Woodley, 5D chess, I know Woodley's not smart whatsoever, but there is a chance that some parts of his brain are working. 5D chess, he's taking Gilbert Burns because he knows that he's a little bit inactive, and he wants a warm-up fight for some of these top guys in Colby Covington, in an Usman rematch, in Masvidal, in Leon Edwards. If he does it in spectacular fashion, which I think he could do in the second round, I don't mind his chances. I really don't. And I think it would be good for him if he took this fight. Maybe that's the only positive I can see here. If he does win, he's not going to be coming off a long layoff anymore, and he can jump into top competition while being active. Good shit, Woodley. But I don't think Burns has got him, man. Woodley wins, second round TKO. Burns wins the first round and gets flattened in the second. I think he'll finish him. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye.